not, we'll just have a great conversation and no one else will hear about it. Well, sweet. I actually I'm going to be talking to Kyle Ruth about this topic, and I wanted to get your opinion on it, or your experience on it. So basically, it was like a change your mind episode of things that, over the last couple of years, let's call it like months to years, you've changed your perspective on something, or like how you go about things. So I don't necessarily have a specific topic other than just like, coaching and training as a whole. I can start us off, and then we'll just jump into wherever we go from there. There was two things that I feel like have they're just sort of like generalized. They're not like on like any one specific thing. But one of the things that I feel like I've definitely done differently is for people who are higher level athletes, I give them a little bit less of like a like, I'm trying to think of how to describe this best. Like I would often like have like, okay, you're going to do this thing, and then you're also going to do this thing in this session, and then you're going to do this third thing, and they'd all be like kind of separate almost. So it'd be like you're attacking multiple different things within the same session. Whereas I feel like what I've done more recently is like, okay, if you're going to have this particular quality, you're going to like keep on it like almost like the whole time. And I think maybe one of the reasons why I've kind of changed that is like, as you work with higher level people, I think they can handle more of that. Whereas like if someone is like newer to training and they don't have like all of this experience under their belt, or just like volume tolerance, then if you give them like 90 minutes of like upper body gymnastics work, like after 30 minutes they're shot, and there's nothing else they can do. Whereas like for a higher level athlete, they can get away with kind of like sticking on the same thing more. And actually I feel like this was something that Wes Johnson brought up during, and this obviously very different when you're talking about something like triathlon. But for him it was like, I think he said the frequency is what sort of like builds like the skill of the movement, and then like the volume that you do like in individual sessions is sort of like what builds like the fitness component. It's more like hardware.
Yeah.
And like that was very interesting to me. I felt like that stuck with me a little bit, where it was like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with like attacking multiple different things, but you're not going to get nearly as strong of an effect for the athlete if you do that, versus if you kind of like sticking on like one quality the whole time, provided that the athlete's like ready and able to handle that. That might be a better approach for someone who's at a higher level.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, because I think I've kind of gone the same way too, where like you were saying, you're trying to, before you would try to work a lot of multiple qualities in one session.
Yeah.
And I think I would try the same thing too. And this is from like a strength and conditioning perspective, working with athletes from all different sports. It's like, okay, I need them to work on power, but I also need them to work on absolute strength, and I need them to work on this and this, and then we're going to do conditioning at the end. And right, so you're touching on everything. And it's like, I got to fit this all in 1 hour. And now it's like, especially with athletes that I've been working with for over a year, I know them better, and I know their strengths and weaknesses. And it's like, hey, like, this is the focus today. We're going to work on absolute strength, since that's really like your biggest weakness and the biggest hole that you have right now. We're going to maybe touch on this stuff, maybe touch on a little bit like power work, but the main focus is going to be that absolute strength. And we're just going to repeat that, over and over again, and really like hone in on that quality versus like skipping around all these different things. And I know there's like, when you periodize, for athletes, there's like different approaches you could take. And a lot of people take a concurrent approach where they're working on multiple qualities at once. And I've kind of steered away from that, like you were saying, and going a little bit more to like, all right, this is a single focus and we'll have small touch points on the other things. But I think with everything that a lot of athletes are doing outside of the weight room in their sport, they're already working these other qualities. So like, for example, a diver is already working on repeated power outputs in their practice. So when they come in the weight room, like, yeah, I want to work on power things because that translates to sport, but they're already doing that over and over again in these long practices. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to double down on that when they've already worked on that. But, if we're looking at developing power overall, we know that force times velocity. So what other qualities can I work to increase that power? Well, force, right? Absolute strength. Maybe look at that to increase everything else. And that's probably their biggest weakness too. Like the biggest bang for their buck is going to be increasing that force output. So, okay, that's going to be the focus. And then everything else, like, we add an accessory work to touch upon other things. But yeah.
Yeah. What you just said brought up one of the reasons why I also think that's been the case for me. It's like for athletes, the higher level athletes that I coach in the sport of CrossFit, it's like they're getting so many sessions in a week that it's like you can kind of spread it out a little bit more. You don't have to focus on multiple things at once. Whereas like if I have an athlete and they want to be a competitive CrossFitter and they come to me and they're like, all right, I have 5 sessions a week. They're definitely getting some of everything in almost every session. Maybe not everything, right? But they're going to definitely work on multiple things in each session because they have to. And I guess also it's like when I say like you'll focus on one specific thing, that doesn't mean that they're still not preparing for the thing that they are trying to get better at, right? It's like, that doesn't mean that they're working on like, okay, this is your aerobic session and you're just doing that, or this is your gymnastics session and they're only doing body weight stuff in that one. It's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It might be like let me think of a good example of this. Like for myself right now, like, okay, Tuesday PM it's like, okay, Monday I did like high power output or like basically like more like squatting, strength, maybe some Olympic weightlifting and some like lower body accessories in the morning. And then like in the evening, it was like I did a run workout. So it's like, okay, that's all very upper or lower body dominant. So like Tuesday, I'm going to do some like gymnastics work, stuff that's more upper body. And then also like it's going to be like mixed in with CrossFit because like that's what's necessary because I haven't touched on it yet. So it's like that's more narrow than if I was trying to do weightlifting and gymnastics and this and that. But it's like that's still generalized enough where I could be doing, ski erg, ring muscle up, burpee in one sport conditioning piece on one week, and then the next week it could be, total bar, rowing, and light barbell snatches or something, right? And it's like, but that still is ultimately like, okay, you're working around the upper body a lot. It's some erg power with some like upper body gymnastics like kind of mixed into it. So it's like, that's narrow enough where you're getting the qualities that you want to work on. So yeah, I guess it does vary in terms of like the level of the athlete and then also like their weekly schedule as to like how you might break that out.
I'm curious, like as you've accumulated years of like coaching and working with people, has your coaching approach changed at all in terms of like, have you become more flexible as a coach when someone gives you feedback, less? Are you pretty much the same? Like, because I know when I first started, like, you create a plan and you're like, this is the plan, and you stick to the plan, and you try to like not deviate. Like you want to stick to the plan as much as possible. And I feel like as time has gone on, like I've kind of changed in that way where it's like I'm really flexible, and it's just like, well, like the athlete feedback is the most important thing to me, the most important piece of information. And so, and like listening to like the outside factors going on, do they have do they have a stressful time in their personal life currently where it's kind of interfering with the quality of their work in the gym, things like that. So I'm kind of curious on your approach, if that's changed.
Yeah. Maybe it depends a little bit. Like, I think I'll be, if I'm being honest, like, if there's times where athletes have things that were like clearly preventable and things that they had on their calendar ahead of time that are getting relayed to me last minute, I am either frankly like maybe a little annoyed by that, or I mean, just honestly, it's like a waste of my time, right? It's like just because you didn't know your schedule, now I have to like rewrite your design. Like, I will do it, but that's annoying. Like, if I'm being honest, right? Because now I have to do your work twice, and this is like something that you knew ahead of time. So in that way, it's like, not that I'm not going to be a good coach to that athlete, but I think maybe then it's just like a conversation of like, hey, if you know this stuff ahead of time, just please let me know, right? And I try to be nice about it, but like, that's honestly annoying. Whereas like the other times, and this is I guess the contrast to that, is like an athlete comes to me and they're like, hey, I had this training and I had this tweak happen, or I have to go on this last minute trip that I didn't see coming, or whatever, right? Like life circumstances of like things that are changing. It's like, hey, you know what? I'm really tired from this session that I did, and I wasn't expecting to be that. Or like, you know what? Can we add a little bit of this in? Because like I feel like whatever, right? And they're just giving me honest feedback on things. I feel like I'm way more reactive to that stuff now. It's like, yes, let's like change it up. Let's do this. Let's like, because at the end of the day, like there are so many factors, especially for my CrossFit athletes, that it's like if anything else, have come to realize that like I'm just not going to know sometimes how you're going to feel. So like,
yeah,
if I'm doing my job well, it means that I am listening to you and that I'm able to change things. And I think part of that is like you'll have some athletes who like I just said will come to me and be like, hey, I'm tired in this Tuesday PM session. Like I'm still fatigued Wednesday when I get to my work. It's like, okay, let's change that. Whereas like also part of my job is I'll have other athletes who don't communicate that, where they don't explicitly tell me that, and I might have to like interpret that through their feedback. So like I think I've personally gotten to the point where I enjoy kind of troubleshooting some of that stuff more. Like they might not even realize it, but like Wednesday morning just doesn't go great a lot of the time. It's like, hey, you've had 4 intensive sessions in the week already up to this point, and like consistently Tuesday PM feedback looks like that's great, but then the Wednesday AM that falls apart. So it's like something needs to give at some point in the week. Before then, let's figure out what it is and like work on it. So I think to me, like that's what like the actual coaching process, and not just like program design, that's like coaching. And I feel like, yeah, like I don't know, like I used to get super excited about program design. It's not that I don't anymore, but I also like enjoy working with people and talking with people about their like experiences. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense, because yeah, it becomes more about coaching, the actual like coaching.
And like that's what I want to do.
And
like I don't know, like yeah, writing designs is great, and there is a part of that is like the analytical, mathematical, scientific part of that is like a lot of fun, but it's also like if that's all you do, that gets old kind of quick.
Yeah.
So like after you've done it for like a decade, you're like, yeah, this is great, and I do get excited about elements of this, but at the same time, like, can I talk to people?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's where it becomes super fulfilling, when you're able to like, talk to the athlete and have those conversations, and then you start kind of predicting like things about them. It's like, well, I know usually when they're working, when they do this X amount of times, like I know that's usually their limit before they start kind of falling apart throughout the week. So let me try to troubleshoot that and work on that. And I like see it a lot too, where it's like, okay, like Mondays or Tuesdays, the athletes come in, they look great. Like weight is moving pretty quick. Like they're able to kind of push the limit. Friday rolls around and everyone's mood is different. Like they're not talking as much. Like they just come in and they're just like, what's next? What's next? It's like, okay, like I know something's going on here. So maybe I need to kind of adjust the load for that and kind of maybe have an undulating approach versus like just high intensity or whatever, like a linear.
This is funny because for your athletes, they're going to show up. They're just going to be tired and like kind of like, I don't really feel like at our affiliate, like if it's been like a really hard week, like we'll just have like class numbers that are down. I'm like, why is this class kind of late today? It's like, oh, everyone's trash from Wednesday squats, and that's my way of knowing.
Oh, yeah, right. Because like at a gym, like if people are tired or whatever, they just don't show up.
They just don't show up.
Hey, I need an extra day. I need an extra day. I'm wrecked. Versus,
that's like the most raw feedback you're gonna get is just like statistics from like your classes.
Yeah, that's
like no one showed up to this hard Metcon on Friday because they were all tired.
Yeah,
it's obvious.
We're like, like athletes are forced to show up, which I also keep in mind too. Like, all right, they're forced to be here, so like even if they feel like trash, they're forced to be here, so they're forced to do something. But like, I want to make this work still meaningful for them in terms of like, I want them to get something out of it. I don't want them to come here and do junk volume or whatever. Like, and it's always interesting too because you have a group of people, and there's some people who recover very quickly. So they come in, they're just like, I feel fine. Where someone else is like, I can't feel my legs. And we had hill sprints today, and I was so wrecked from the lunges 2 days ago that like it was interfering with that. So it's like, okay, well, so I like before I used to do very much percentage work with teams where it's like, hey, today we're doing 3 sets of whatever at whatever percent of your 1 rep or estimated 1 rep, where now I do like RPE based. And I try to make it so that my athletes have a good understanding of RPE. And I know that varies from person to person, but it gives them that, direction. Yeah, exactly. So they're able to, kind of work around that. And then I give them guidelines too, where it's like, hey, if you got super wrecked from the squats 2 days ago and you're still feeling like fatigued from that, central nervous fatigue or muscular fatigue or whatever, then this is how I want you to approach it. If you feel recovered from that and you feel fine, then you're going to take this approach instead, and giving them guidelines so that they have a little bit more of autonomy. That being said, it's like I have to be careful with who I do that with, because some athletes are newer or they'll try to take the easy route all the time. So being careful about that. But a lot of times if you teach an athlete, and athletes, a lot of them want to get better. So they'll do it right.
Yeah, and I think that's what it comes down to is either way, if you have a mature athlete, they'll probably do things correctly. Like, not that mature athletes are always rational, but they tend to be a little bit more, at least a lot of them, tend to be a little bit more objective, can be a little bit more objective. Whereas, like, if you give them RPE, they're probably going to get fairly close to where they should be. If you use percentages and they feel like trash, they'll probably adjust them a little bit or whatever. They'll make it work. Whereas, like, if you have a beginner, they probably don't really understand how to use RPE correctly.
Yeah.
But also percentages are just going to be useless. So it's like either way, it goes back to like having a conversation with them. Like, hey, this is what like the deal is, whatever your system you're using. And it's like, to get the most out of this is sort of what you need to do. And it goes back to just like, that's coaching. So like, there's no like perfect system.
Right. There's none. And like, with percentages, it's like if someone's new to Olympic lifting, right? Like percentage work is really not going to be the greatest because like they could only snatch their technique is so trash that
because they can snatch 110% today.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so it's like, it's not going to be as useful. Eventually, like percentages, I think becomes a better suited way. But especially if someone's new, it's kind of like, hey, just get reps in and just try to do like add weight where you can based on how you're feeling.
You got anything else that you feel like you've changed your mind on?
Yeah, I think one thing, and this is like for myself and for a lot of athletes I work with too, personal training and athletes for a specific sport, is the amount of volume needed to accomplish what I want to accomplish. So, and I think naturally I'm someone who likes volume. Like personally for me, I like doing a lot of volume of things. So if I could do like German volume training, let's do it, right? Like just 10 sets. Yeah.
Yeah. If I could do 3 sets of 10 or 5 sets of 10, I'm going to do 10 sets of 10.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to double it. So like I just personally like that. Like it was just something I've always liked. So I used to do a lot of high volume. I did a high volume approach, and then I've kind of gotten away from that and gotten more with like, okay, well, I think a lot of volume becomes junk volume where there's not much meaningful reward coming from it, or any reward coming from, an additional 2 sets. So, bringing load down, especially with athletes, and I think even a lot of like general population folks, because like so many people, like they're doing so much on the outside, right? Like athletes specifically, like they're doing so much work on the outside and they don't have a lot of weight room experience, let's say. So why give them 5 sets of 10 when they could accomplish and get meaningful work out of 3 sets of 8, right? We're still going to get the same amount. And honestly, the extra 2 sets may cause just additional fatigue that's going to like severely interfere with their training, their practices. So being a little bit more conscious of like volume, and that's something I've done too now that like running more, right? So like initially I was someone who liked to be in the weight room a lot and spend hours there every day. I'm like, I'm just going to start running and just do them both at the same time, right? Keep them both high. And now it's like, okay, well, I have a limiting, like one of my limiting factors is time. I can't spend 4 hours, 5 hours in the gym every day. So that's one thing. Another limiting factor is recovery, right? I can't do both at a high level, or in high volume. So something's got to give. As my running volume goes up, I'm going to have to bring my like lifting volume down. And so I've done that, which was like, it's a struggle. It's not something I want to do, but, as I've done that, I realized like, oh, I'm still able to improve. I'm still able to get a lot out of it. I'm still able to keep good amount of muscle mass. I'm still able to, be keep relatively the same, like, 1 rep maxes. Like it's not the same, but it's not too far off either. It's not like I've dropped 100 pounds on everything or, something that severely. So yeah, it's something that like I've changed recently, and I've kind of brought that with like my coaching as well.
Yeah, and I feel like in the examples that you've given, it's more so people who are like their strength training is almost like maintenance, like it's supportive or maintenance versus like your athletes or you are not being like tested in your ability to bench press. So it's like if you bench press, it's like. Yeah, like, make sure it's like supplementary. It doesn't need to be like the main thing. You don't need to like put all this time into creating huge adaptation there.
Yeah.
And it's like you can achieve what you want to achieve from like either, I guess there's 2 different demographics there, right? It's like, if we just use you as the example, it's like you're able to pull back volume a lot compared to what you were doing before and still maintain so much of what you had, because it's like you have so many reps under your belt that you can get away with doing that. And then you can put more of those resources towards other things where it's like for the athletes you're working with, chances are a lot of them don't have, especially the sports you are working with, they don't have like this huge, they weren't doing German volume training before, right? So it's like they don't need to do 5 sets of something to be able to like drive change. It's like, again, just depending what it was, but generally they don't need to be doing like a ton of volume in something to make a big difference. Whereas like I feel like that changes though as soon as, and this is obviously not the case for the examples that you were just giving, but like for example, if it was like the thing that you are being tested in is the thing that you're like training, then it's like at a certain point you do have to be very careful about like driving that thing forward in a smart way. And I guess like examples would be like, okay, if you're a weightlifter, it doesn't matter how many sets of squats you do in a week, right? If obviously if you're a senior
Correct.
weightlifter
Yeah.
and you've been doing this forever, like you probably can at some point back off. But especially if you're like in certain phases of your training or like you're you know basically going up through the ranks as a young lifter, it's like you do want to be able to take on more. And that also might be true with like a completely different situation with like triathlon. It's like, okay, you want to be taking on more training volume, not just because you are, you know, not just because that's like a 1-to-1 to you getting better, but you should be able to handle more. And that's a good sign that if you're able to just take on more work, especially in certain phases of your season, that chances are like that is going to correlate to you performing better to a certain extent.
Yeah. Right. It's like if someone wants to run an ultra marathon, like, well, 60, 70-mile weeks is not unusual. Like, but for someone who's a recreational runner like myself, like, hey, I like running and, I'm trying to do it as often as possible. That's a insane amount,
Yeah.
So cause like, again, time's a limiting factor. That's not my main focus. I'm not trying to run an ultra marathon. Like, it's not my main goal. So, understanding that. But yeah, like a power lifter, weightlifter, their approach is going to be a little different because that is their sport and that is their focus. So volume, becomes a different conversation than it would be for someone who's using strength training as like a supplement to improve
Right.
qualities.
Maybe an analogy for this would be like you have all these different dials of like different training aspects, right? And it's like I could turn up the intensity all the way to like the loading. I could turn up the volume as much as I want, right? And you have all these sliders. It's like if you're working with a good chunk of population, the volume slider just doesn't actually need to be all that crazy high. But that doesn't mean that in certain cases for certain athletes that you wouldn't use that as a very specific tool and like push it up pretty high.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's just like I'm thinking of like over the years of me coaching specifically CrossFitters, there are certain situations where I have been maybe a little bit afraid to like turn up that volume dial, especially like, okay, is it wrong to give a, I don't know, 19-year-old female athlete 10 doubles at 90%? I guess it probably depends who you ask, right? But if they're doing it and they feel good and their lifts are going up, right, and they're not having compensations that are like, they're not dealing with like joint stuff or they're not dealing with chronic fatigue or like overtraining symptoms, it's like, hey, maybe you keep pushing them. But like obviously like that's like an extreme example and like most people aren't going to fall under that. So it's just like there's so many like what if cases like, oh, but there's that one scenario where like, oh yeah, you can run 100 miles a week because you're 20 years old, you're a professional runner, and yeah, it aligns with your goals, and you can do it. So you say you shouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part about coaching, like all kinds of athletes and people, because you'll find some extremes, and there are just some things where you're like, oh, I wouldn't like, you can look at another coach's program, and you're like, that's an insane amount of volume, or I would never do this, that the intensity is way too high. But you don't know what that athlete is capable of. Like there are just some people who are just so like they respond to volume, they respond to super high intensity. They're like, if I were to give them to stay within the normal parameters of like an average athlete, like they're not the average athlete. They can handle so much more. And yeah, it's like someone who's like, oh, hey, like, yeah, I'm doing a 100-mile weeks. Like every week I'm running over 100 miles. Like that's absurd. But there are just some people who can handle that and they respond well to that, and they're trying to be as extreme as possible in preparation for their ultra marathon, whatever it is. So that's the one thing I've learned is kind of like, hey, like you can look at a program, but you don't be too quick to judge, because usually there's some type of story behind it and some type of approach.
Yeah.
I always find that interesting.
So last year I had an athlete come to me, and this person was like very average athlete and wanted to get stronger, had some other goals, but they were a competitive CrossFitter. And they were like, I wrote the first week and they're like, hey, I want more Metcons in here. And I was like, I said okay. And I think I might have added like one extra conditioning piece somewhere that was like low key. But I was just like, no. Like, and I was like, hey, this is why we're capped out, and I'm not giving you any more. This year I had an athlete come to me, and I looked at their previous training, and it was just insane with the amount of volume that they were doing. And I built out their first week, and I kept very close to that amount of conditioning in throughout the week, which was a lot, way more than the other athlete was doing. It's just like, sometimes, like, I don't know, like, and it's even hard for me to articulate, like, without being insulting what was different about these athletes. But it's like, sometimes, like, when you have the person in front of you, it's just like my gut and like my intuition and like my experience tells me like this is what you need. Like if I would have given that other athlete like all the conditioning they asked for, they just would have been so weak that it wouldn't even mattered, right? Or like they wouldn't have improved in like the strength the way they needed to. Whereas like this other person, it's like, I think you're doing this not because you actually are being insecure about your fitness level. I think you're doing this because like you actually can handle it. So like, let's keep a good chunk of that in.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always I think a lot of times what I've noticed is, especially as I've gotten more to like the minimal volume approach with a lot of people, is they're just like, that's it. It's like, well, it shouldn't be that's it, because if you did it at the correct intensity, you know, you would be like, okay, that's good. Like I don't need to do more sets. Because that's the point with like the low volume that approach that I'm taking is kind of like, hey, like this may be low volume, but like you're taking these pretty high. Mm-hmm. Like there is a high intensity with this. It's not like, hey, you're just going like RPE 6 for 3 sets of 6. Like you're going RPE 8 to 9 for that. And if you feel at the end of it's like that's it, it's like we missed the mark here, and maybe I need to better communicate that. I get that a lot though with a lot of CrossFit athletes, is like if they don't see enough Metcons, they're just like, because they're used to going to class. A lot of times when people go from group classes to individual programming, they're like, wait, like I was doing Metcons every day at group classes. Like where is that? Yeah.
It's that, I think. It's also like almost every like blog program you're kind of, and that's, I think it's also the reason why they are that way is because that's what drives sales, I think, to be honest. It's like people, if people don't do like hard conditioning, you know, and they say they're doing CrossFit and they don't do that on a essentially daily basis, they're probably just going to bounce out of the program, to be honest, because like they think that's what they need. And to be clear, there are definitely people who are in that bucket. It's just not nearly as many as they think. It's like I have people who really should be breathing hard and doing like pretty challenging metabolic work, like, you know, 8-10 times a week at least. Whereas I have other people, it's like if you touch that like 3 times a week, you are good. Like you don't need to be doing any more. Let's put the resources somewhere else.
Right.
So I just think that's a matter of like class environment, plus like the best athletes are doing a lot of conditioning. So there's that like trickle down.
Yeah.
I think maybe like in the running world, it's also just like, that's probably just like weekly mileage is like the stat to like throw around. Like, yeah, I'm running 80 miles a week. Like, congrats. Like, what's your 10K time? Well, hour and a half.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, I think some people just they're slaves to insecurity in a way.
Yeah.
Because I think that at the end of the day, like, that's what it is. Like, if I don't breathe today, like, am I going to get out of shape? It's like, if you're a really confident athlete in your abilities, like, you're like, hey, I'm a great athlete. Like, if I don't breathe hard today, am I going to lose my conditioning? Like, no, I'm working on something else.
Right. Yeah, people love the whole breathing hard, feeling like your soul is crushed. And if they don't get that, it's like, did I even do any work?
Yeah, but right. And that's the issue is, like,
yeah,
they think that, but, like, I don't think they actually think that. Like, you don't actually love being smashed every day. You just think you need that to fulfill whatever's going on, or to, like,
yeah.
So it's like someone who's overtrained, I don't know, like, generally I don't think they actually want to go train. It's just like this sense of obligation that, or fear, or maybe it's a little bit of, like, one of those scenarios where it's like, I only feel good when I train sort of thing, which is, again, it's dysfunctional, frankly.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think, sadly, a lot of the population is like that.
Yeah.
I
mean, I'm sure we've been both there.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not me, like, saying that I'm better than other people, because I've personally dealt with that quite a bit. Like, I don't feel like training today, but I'm gonna do it anyway. And, like, not in, like, there's a way to do that in, like, a healthy way, where it's like, you know what, I don't get to do, as a human being, I just don't get to do what I want to do all the time, and it's good for me to go train, even though I'm being a lazy, person right now, so I'm gonna go do it. It's like, okay, that's actually a good thing. But there's other times where it's like, you know what, you're actually not being soft, and if you're honest with yourself, like, you probably are a little bit overtrained, and, like, it probably actually be good for you to, like, take a rest day, but, like, no, like, I got to keep working hard, sort of thing. That mentality. Which I think, again, everybody's in a little bit of that boat, so I think if you can, like, that's one of the distinct advantages of having a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that outside perspective, it's just, there's so much, I mean, this is, like, an obvious statement, but the circulation of, like, a hard work and all that through, like, social media, and especially if you're, like, surrounded in a certain community, whether it's at a gym or in a team, like, there is that mentality of, like, you got to work hard all the time, the grind. I think it's interesting.
I mean, it's crazy. It sells.
Yeah, it sells hardcore. And people
is that, like, an American thing, or is that everywhere? Is that, like, maybe just worse in America?
I don't know. I know. So I don't know in terms of fitness. I know in terms of, like, work.
Yeah.
That's an American thing. I remember it was one of my first times, like, working as an adult. I was working at a lab, and the professor was, like, he was Russian. Everyone else, so the principal investigator, the professor, was Russian. Everyone else was, like, Asian, some sort of Asian, right? There was, like, some Koreans, there were some Vietnamese, Japanese, whatever. And we would have group lunches, and we'd go out to lunch, and lunches would be, like, 4 hours long. We'd go to like, an Indian place for lunch, and then after that he's like, let's go roller skating. We'd go roller skating, and there was there was two Americans in the group. It was myself, and I was the youngest one. I was interning at the time, and there was another American guy, and he was just like, I got to get back to the lab to finish my experiment. And the professor was always like, Americans just go, like, you'll get time to do this experiment. There's not a rush on the deadline. Like, enjoy this time. And he was like, just, slow down. He's like, it is just such an American thing to go, go, go. And he was so like relaxed, and the rest of the team was too. Like, they show up to the lab at 10. They would leave whenever the experiment is done. They wouldn't try to like just waste time until 5 p.m. They would leave. If the experiment's done, they're gone. And I always found that interesting. I was like 20 at the time, 21. And I'm like, it's so interesting. And so, and then I've noticed that everywhere I've gone, it's like, it is very go, go, go. Military, it's like, you have to be there at 6 a.m. and you're staying there till 5 p.m., 6 p.m. every day. Even if there's nothing to do, find something to do.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting mentality.
Yeah. I guess maybe this would be my guess as to that answer is like, it's a cultural thing. So it's like in the United States culture, there's a lot of people are that way, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people are that way. But also certain circles within other cultures are that way. It's like the subculture. Like, I'm sure people who are working for certain companies or like, I mean, I can think of countless examples through Europe and Asia where it's like, I'm sure like these people are expected to like sleep at their desks sort of thing. So it's certainly not that everybody's that way. Maybe just like culture at large.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, definitely like, I think there's a good chunk of people in America that's like, that's been drilled into them. It's like, if you're resting, you're being a loser.
Yeah. You're not doing anything. You're not getting anything out of it.
It's like, you gotta like you wouldn't admit to anybody that you like took a nap in the middle of the day. It's like,
right.
No, I was working.
You don't do that. Yeah.
Whereas like, that's just like a normal thing other places. It's like, it doesn't even matter if you had a more productive day after your nap. Like, if you napped, it was
just gone.
Don't do that.
It was a waste. It was a waste.
Yeah. Which I feel like maybe some of that's coming around, where it's like, people are understanding that like, rest is also important. And maybe I think when I had Dante and Sam here, we were podcasting, that they said this because Dante's like on Wall Street, and he was like, I was like, yeah, like people like, sleep when you're dead sort of like mentality. And he's like, yeah, a lot of the old guard's that way, but like people are understanding that like you have to also have like balance with things. Otherwise you just like burn out and like don't perform well. So it's like, if you're not able to function properly, like when you're making important decisions about trading things, it's like, that's not great either. So
yeah.
I think some places people are coming around.
Yeah, I think people are coming around. I know, like, sometimes I post like, oh, hey, it's 4 a.m. I'm working out, right? And people, everyone's
sometimes,
like, oh my God. Yeah. Sometimes, at least once a week. And everyone's like, oh, like waking up early, blah, blah, blah. And people always make comments, but it's like, I also went to sleep at like 6:30 p.m. Like, I got my 8 hours. Like, I'm fully rested. I'm not like just grinding, staying up till like midnight, waking up early because I got so much work to do. Yeah, exactly. Less people. Like, I like to go to sleep, or like, that's just the way I like to do it. But like, I keep that in mind. Last night, I did go out to the movies. I got home at like 10 p.m. I went to sleep at like 10 p.m. So I slept in. That's why when you sent me the text this morning, I was like, thank God, because if it was a 4 a.m. call, I would be dead.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Let's see if I got anything else. Yeah, I feel like this is kind of related. This will, I guess, be my last one. It was like, one of the things I feel like I've done differently or changed my mind on is, and this maybe goes back to what I said originally, which is like, when I touch on something, especially in a higher level athletes program, I give them like a rather strong touch of it, rather than just like sprinkling in different things that are all just sort of not having a strong training effect. And I also think like from a maybe, yeah, joint health, um, movement work, warm up protocols, it's a little bit less of a, like a shotgun approach and more like tailored to like specific athlete needs. So it's like, and I think that's a couple of things. Like one is, I think I've just seen that, you know what, this is just like not necessary for some people to just do like these non-tailored things. And it's, if it's not necessary, then it's just like a waste. Something else could be in there or nothing. You know, just go do something else. Um,
Yeah.
and then it was also very much like I trained a lot of my athletes like I like to be trained. Like, oh, I like these types of warm-up drills. I like these types of, this style of conditioning. I like whatever, right? And like to a degree, like you're always going to have that bias as a coach. Like obviously you're going to write things that you think are effective. And one of the reasons why you might think they're effective is because they have been effective for you. But I also think that there are people who are very different demographics than you. And if you want to be a good coach to everyone and not just the people who are like very much like you, then you have to like mature in how you think about programming for those types of athletes. And again, I guess my point that I'm getting at here is like, for me, I feel like it was a little bit less just like, here's some general things that you should be doing that have been successful for a wide variety of athletes. And it's like, hey, let's like drill down and like find the things that are like going to move the needle for you specifically through like your feedback to me and through like conversations about like that specific thing so that we can find what's most helpful. And then rather just like then like rotating through like a bunch of like a big list mindlessly, let's just stay on that stuff.
Yeah. I think touching on the point of that you mentioned like warm-ups that work well for you, and so like you give that to your athletes because you're like, hey, this worked well for me, I like it. I think that's one of the good things about being a coach who kind of trains as well, because you know things that work well for you, so you provide that to your athletes with the expectation of like, hey, it worked for me, hopefully it works for you. But there are some approaches that I've taken too recently where I've started like teaching athletes different things where it's like, for example, my warm-ups are very like minimal, non-existent. Like I don't like warm-ups. Like I just kind of just do like a few things and I'm going after like 2 minutes, versus other athletes like a little bit longer. And sometimes they like some neuromuscular stuff. Some people like, static stretches. Some people foam roll. Some people need a little bit more of like some aerobic component to get like blood flowing. Some people like a combination of everything. So one thing I try to do is I try to teach them like all of these different things, these different tools that they can use. And then it's like, all right, from there, you have everything, see what works for you. I know how I like to warm up, but these are all other proven tools that other coaches use that I've seen be effective for other people. You decide how you want to warm up based on how you're feeling and what you like.
Does that change at all based on like experience level of the athlete? I guess the reason I asked that question is like, for me, I feel like if I had an experienced athlete, like if I was coaching you, for example, I'd be like, like I'd probably ask you as to like what things you think should be in there, and then like based on your feedback, tweak it a little bit, but like keep it largely the same. Versus like if I have someone who's new to training, it's like, I don't really care how you feel, bro. Just do this.
Yeah.
like I can't trust how you feel yet. Almost, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that plays a big role in it, right? It's like if someone's unexperienced or you haven't worked with them yet, it's like just try this out for, X amount of weeks, and we'll see how once like X amount of weeks you got that under your belt, then feedback becomes a little bit more like valuable in a sense, and you'll start taking it a little bit more seriously. But if someone's new or very low experience, or let's say you just don't trust them as much for some reason, it's like I'm going to try to have a little bit more structure and say in what they do.
Yeah. Have you ever had an athlete, like, I'm sure you have. Let me rephrase this a little differently. It's like, oftentimes, younger people, or just like lower training ages, let's say, they like haven't like gone through like the subculture of like knowing how to say things in a way, like the feedback, like the way you normally hear it. Like for my CrossFitters, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I my back blew up in this workout, and then like things fell apart." And they're like, "Okay, what that means is generally they were working really hard, and they had a bunch of low back occlusion. They got a bunch of like a lot of blood in the area, and like basically the muscle stopped working correctly." And that's usually what people mean when they say that. So like I kind of know what they mean. Whereas like some people will say something that's just in their feedback that is like they'll describe it in a way that's just like completely different, and I'm like having to like figure out what they actually mean when they say that. I'm trying to like oftentimes it's like related to like muscle fatigue. They'll be like, "Oh my gosh, like I was doing this set and my muscles were so sore." And I was like,
yeah.
like, what? like I know you're not getting DOMs in the middle of your set. So are you talking about like metabolic pain? Like you have to like tease out like what they mean when they describe certain things like that. I'm trying to think of other good examples.
Or they'll say something that is like, "Oh, I felt it here," as if it's in like a painful way, and I'm like, "No, you're probably just feeling it there." Like you're like how you're supposed to. Like if they feel anything with their back, it's like, okay, well that is a back exercise I want, and like your low back is a part of this movement, and I'm glad you're feeling it there because that was the intent. But if they feel anything in their lower back, it's like red flag, because we all know low backs, are very sensitive, whatever.
That's a great example.
It's like it's like automatically red flag, and it's like, no, that's literally what we're trying to work on here. But if they feel anything in their low back, they're just like, "Oh my God."
Yeah, there's been other ones where like, "Oh my," and it's like a joint, and they'll be like, "Oh, it's been really tired." I'm like, "Do you mean like achy?" There's just so many things like that where it's like, or the other one that can be kind of dangerous if you have like an intermediate athlete in terms of like experience level and understanding of things, and they're like giving you like physiology terms when they're explaining things back to you, and you're like, I don't think that's actually true. Like, they'll be like, "Oh, like I experienced this," and I'm like, I don't think you actually did. Like, they'll be like giving me the reason why they like failed their intervals, but they'll give it in like, they'll say this isn't what they would say, but they'd be like, "Oh, like I reached my max heart rate and then I wasn't able to do my interval." I'm like, I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of some good. I hear a lot of good ones, and now I'm blanking on all of them.
Yeah. But I feel like that's been another like layer of coaching that is like I didn't really expect, but I mean I guess I should have, but it's just been one of those things that it's almost been kind of like, it's like challenging, but it's also like fun to like tease out. Like it's like when when it's like a skill that you didn't know you need. Like when Jack's he's better now, but like when he started talking, come up to you and start talking, and it's like toddler speak, and you're like, let me try to interpret this again. Say that again. I'm like, okay, I think this is what you mean, right? And it's like toddler talk for physiology. It's like, okay, you're saying your muscle's sour in the middle of your set. Okay, does that mean that you're like experiencing this? Yeah, you're getting a pump. What does this mean? So
right, that's funny.
Fun skill set to try to learn.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. That was fun. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah.
People got other topics they want to hear from us, let us know. We're always looking for something fun to talk about. So thanks for listening.